It's with great pleasure that I get to introduce the next presenter, Mourad Lahlou. He's, you may have seen him compete on Iron Chef America against Kat Cora.
And I was the judge.
Oh my God. Go
Okay,
figure.
wait, you cannot leave your seats. If you are a chef, no, I'm serious. If you are a chef who wants to cook with soul, and I'm telling you, I do 600 tastings a year, and 590 of them don't have soul, then you need to sit in your seat and you need to see what this chef is got to say. Because this chef, Chef Mourad Lahlou from restaurant Aziza in San Francisco, cooks with soul like nobody you'll ever gonna meet. Please welcome Mourad Lahlou.
That was a loud kiss. Thank you for having me here. It's really an honor to be here amongst some of the best chefs in the world. I'm really humbled. When I was asked about 6 months ago to be part of this conference, and Antoinette approached me about a topic, what should I be talking about? I couldn't really think about anything interesting. So we started going back and forth about what to talk about, and she came up with this idea of the soul on a plate, which I didn't even think about before she brought it up. The way I cook is for me to really think about what I'm doing, have some sense of place and time. So when I'm making food, it has to relate to some part of me from the past. And I have to be mindful of what's coming up in the future. What do I want to achieve? Has this been done before? Things like that go into making food, and that is really important to me. So when we started talking about this topic here, it got me going about thinking about food from a different perspective. For me, personally, I think food is something that connects all of us, to ourselves, to people we love, to places we love. So when people sometimes, they might have a bowl of pasta or a little tagine with vegetables. It might not be much, it might not require a lot of skills, but it might bring you a lot of memories. It might give you a sense of time and a sense of place that is really important to you personally. It might be something that, you've heard before, my grandma's pasta is the best pasta in the world. Not every pasta could be the best pasta in the world. Not every couscous could be the best couscous in the world. But we all feel that way because the connection that food gives us to the place and the time that we actually consume that food. So I start to try to capture those moments. So when I make food, I literally start from the beginning. I try to create food that I grew up on, food that I had when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and then literally I start from that point, make it, try to perfect that, and then try to give it some sense of, it's a personal touch. It's a touch that relates to where I am right now in terms of where I live, the ingredients that I have, and that is really important. You think about it. If I were to tell you all that I'm making Moroccan food in San Francisco, how is that possible? I don't have all the ingredients that I had in Morocco. I don't have all the spices that I had in Morocco. Just because I'm using cumin in San Francisco, that does not mean that it's the same cumin that I have back home. So I had to rethink about it. It would be so dishonest and so misleading to tell people that you can just move from one part of the world to another part of the world and recreate the same thing. It's impossible. That's when you have to think about the place where it was created and the time that it was created and be truthful about it. So when people ask me whether I'm making Moroccan food or not, I don't know. I'm making food that I grew up on in a place that I live in, and that's what I'm making. So that's my idea about how to go about making food. The ingredients that we have in the Bay Area are amazing. I mean, some of the best chefs from the Bay Area, from the United States are here, and they can all tell you that it's always a struggle to move out of the Bay Area and try to cook and do what we want to do somewhere else, including New York. New York has a lot to offer, but I do feel like people in San Francisco also have a lot of things that we work with that we can't find anywhere else, and that has something to do where we grow, where the farmers are, the connections, the relationships that we have with those farmers. And today what I'm going to do is just go into making you a couple of dishes that we made for the conference, and basically I will just talk a little bit. I have 4 dishes for you, but I will talk a little bit about where they came from, where they're at, and where I want to take them. The first dish that I would like to make is squab with hibiscus sauce and maitake mushrooms or oyster mushrooms. And basically, this dish came about from the idea of a bestia. I don't know if you all know about bestia, but it's a Moroccan dish that is so typical of what Moroccan cuisine is, which is like the marriage of savory and sweet at the same time, which is really interesting because that Moroccan cuisine and Chinese cuisine are the only two cuisines that I know of that can basically marry the sweet and the savory. So we're going to start off by yes, please. So we're going to take the breasts and we're going to sear them. These are squab legs that were confit simply. The legs, when we marinated them a little bit in Ras hanout, which is a spice blend from Morocco, which can have anything anywhere between 6 spices to 120 spices. And it's really amazing to me how every single family in Morocco has like a different recipe for it, and they all hold on to it so secretly because they don't want to give it out to anybody else. But I do think that after like maybe a dozen spices, it really doesn't matter because you just keep adding things that, you know, they cloud out the spice and the blend. So we're going to start off by, we're going to saute the legs, and we're going to saute the breasts in a little bit of olive oil. And truly, I mean, it's kind of interesting to me when I heard all these chefs talking today, and they talk about like the difference between art and craft. We all chefs and cooks, we all want to believe that it's craft, it's not art. We're there to make flavor taste really good. We're there to make food that tastes really unbelievable. But I do believe that at the end of the day, there's a little bit of an art angle to it. You can't just say that we just want to make food the way it was made for many years. That is true, and we want to capture that. But each person has a different way of personalizing that and making it their own personal flavors and their own personal dishes. So I'm going to quickly sear these squabs. And the bestia in Morocco, it's made with squab, almonds, phyllo dough, rose water, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and it's wrapped into this kind of pie. It's like the Moroccan version of chicken pot pie, and basically it's wrapped together and it's dusted with powdered sugar and cinnamon. And most people, when they first have it, they literally think, you know, I don't really like to eat sweet food because if it's not desserts, I don't want it. But the fact of the matter, this dish really works well. And this is just like an interpretation of that. I just wanted to capture the sweet and the savory. The sauce that I made for this is made out of hibiscus, which is, it has an acidic tendency. And we added a little bit of glucose to it to thicken it up and to give it a little bit of sweetness. The squab, the legs have been confit, and the breast has been sous vide at 56 degrees for about 20 minutes, and you get really a nice rosy color. For the plate, just puts the sauce down, and then like such, and I'm going to finish it with a little bit of cipollinis that have been pan-seared and some baby leeks. And finish it off with the maitake mushrooms. you go. So this is the first dish that I'm going to make for you. It's truly simple. It captures the essence of where it came from, which is Morocco. It's reinterpreted. It uses the things that we have in the Bay Area. It uses the things that are important to me, where I come from. And I think this is a plate that really captures what I'm trying to do. The second dish that I want to make for you is, can we get some water boiling? The second dish that I want to make for you is, in Morocco we have this dish called Sharmulla, which is basically a mixture of a lot of spices with vegetables. So you make a vegetable stew. The idea today is to make you Sharmulla two ways. If you look at any pictures online about Moroccan food, it tends to look a little bit, it's too rustic. It tends to really not pay any attention to detail in terms of presentation and such. So what I try to do with this dish is capture the flavors and the spices and the essence of the Sharmulla, which is always finished with an egg, a poached egg in the middle of the dish. And you break off the yolk and it runs everywhere. So the idea behind this is just to make it, deconstruct it, and put it back together again. So what I did was, I took an egg that we just topped off, emptied the egg. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's basically, we put the egg yolk back in there, and we're gonna cook it two different ways. Here you go, Marty. The first way we're gonna cook it, we're just gonna float it in simmering water. This process basically allows you to cook the egg. It still will be runny, and it will still be, you know, it will make the sauce basically. It will mix in with the short ribs. So what I did was I took some short ribs that I braised, and I made a Sharmulla sauce that I mixed in together with the short ribs, and this is the result of that. So to finish the dish, we have the floating egg right there, and we're gonna finish that off. And what I did was with the Sharmulla, there always has to be potatoes in there. Potatoes are really crucial in that dish. So I took the potatoes out of that, and I made the foam from a hot potato foam that basically is gonna be on top of the egg to make it look like it's a poached egg. We're gonna make this dish for you two ways. We're gonna make it with the floating egg, and we're gonna make it with, if you were to serve it on a plate. To start with, I'm just gonna take a little bit of this short rib Sharmulla, put it right in the middle of a bowl, just like that. And then this is an egg that was cooked sous vide at 65 degrees. And the really cool thing about it is we cooked this for about an hour, and then you crack it, and you're able to basically separate the white from the yolk. And you can and the yolk has this amazing texture, where it basically it's not a hard-boiled egg, but it has this custard-like consistency. I would love to crack one open for you. Can I get a little plate? No, just a little plate. So you can see the consistency of the egg yolk, and it's really amazing. Here you go, and you see it's not like a hard-boiled egg. It's basically an egg yolk that's been pasteurized. So what we're gonna do is take one of these egg yolks, and we're just gonna place it right on top of the short ribs. And we will finish it with
Chef, what do you have inside of the potato foam?
basically it's just roasted potatoes, olive oil, cream, and that's it. So you have that. We're gonna finish it with a little bit sea salt. We can garnish it. With some blossoms. And That's basically it. So you look at it, it looks a little bit different than what you would expect in Morocco, but it's a dish that you know, reinterprets what we do. The third dish that I want to do for you is really simple. We have in Morocco this, yeah, I'll finish this up first. Is this ready? Okay. So for the second presentation of the Sharmulla, we took the egg yolk that was cooked in the water. We're just going to top it off with the short ribs. And then, again, there you go. So the third dish that we're going to make for you will be a radish salad. And this salad basically is very popular in Morocco. Back home, you know, throughout the summer, you have this salad with citrus and a little bit of yogurt. So this is my interpretation of that. And what I did here is this is just some crème fraîche that's been whipped with a little bit of simple syrup and salt. We're just going to lay it down on a plate. I'm going to toss the radishes with a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt. Have the avocado? And basically, we're just going to lay this down on the plate. And these radishes, some of them are raw, some of them are braised, some of them are going to just be shaved thinly. And it's just to give you an idea that you can have different flavors, different textures from the same ingredient. And these are the braised radishes.
So Mourad, the plate is beautiful, but tell these people in the audience how you've managed to deliver soul, not only on the plate, but to everybody that's worked for you, from Melissa to your chef de cuisine to everybody in your restaurant.
Basically, I really try to convey to them that they can't just, you know, this whole notion of, you know, I call it copy and paste, which is you can't just go on the internet or get a bunch of cookbooks and read them and try to get ideas from everywhere. That's great. It's just going to open up your mind. But you have to have really your own personal interpretation to that. It's got to, like, even with Louis and Melissa, when they make food at the restaurant, they're both not Moroccan. But when they make food, I try to make it clear to them that they have to be true to themselves. They have to be true to where they're coming from. But the Moroccan influence has to come from me. And that's just like a twist that they put on their food. And they just have to be true to themselves. I can't cook Chinese food, even if I tried. And I think that's really important. I think people have to be true to themselves. I think people like, you know, you got James right there. I mean, he's true. When you eat his food, you know that it's James's food without even him being in the room. David Kinch as well, you know, he's one of the best chefs in America. And you can, literally, I can look at a picture of his food and I can know that it's his food.
James's food is beautiful. David Kinch's food is incredible. But your food is soulful.
Okay, if you say so.
I do say so. And I'm trying to find a way to explain the concept of soulful to an auditorium full of chefs.
Well, I mean, soul, what is soul really? I mean, who can explain soul to me? Other than just honesty and be truthful to what you do?
It's that feeling in your belly when a plate of food is sat in front of you, and sometimes it's not about the look of the plate, but it's about the first bite of the dish. And you put it in your mouth, and you can sort of put yourself in the shoes of the chef or where the chef's been. You can sort of transport yourself. And it's not about the beautiful steel light plate right now that you're plating. And it's not about how gorgeous that dish looks, although it does look very gorgeous. But it's something in here. It's something deep down that just makes you want to devour every bite, but makes you feel it.
But it's true that you know, we can use the best looking plates, we can use the best technique out there, we can use the best ingredients, but yeah, the idea of soul, I never even thought about it until we talked about it, you know? I never sat there and said, you know what, I gotta make soulful food. You were the first person to actually tell me that my food was very soulful. But, you know, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's gotta come from the heart, so. So with the radish salad, what I did was, this is soubrique, which is basically, in Morocco, there's this whole tradition of eating food with bread. But I wanted to make this dish with something else. So what I did, I made the soubrique, which is basically a bread pudding made with brioche, eggs, cream, and milk. And you just cook it, you press it, and you can shape it in any way you want. And I'm gonna just finish the salad with some blossoms and some radishes. And these are radish blossoms and radish green, microgreens. And I've always, like ever since I came to the States, I've been really infatuated with this idea of bacon and how everything has bacon. Not everything, but most things have bacon. So I struggled with it because I don't eat pork. So the idea came about where I would use chicken cracklings for this dish instead of bacon. And these are just chicken skin cracklings. Here you go. The last dish that I want to make for you is basically the idea of a tagine. If you go to Morocco, I don't think you'll get away from anything without having to hear about like what a tagine. And it's basically a stew that is made in this dish that is conical. And I think it's an amazing thing because you talk about circulators and you talk about sous vide and how everybody's doing them nowadays. But you think about the tagine and it's basically a dish that is conical, so the steam, you don't need a lot of liquid when you cook in it, but the steam goes from the bottom, it goes alongside the edges and it drops down. So it's like, it's circulating in there and you can literally have everything, including meat and vegetables in it, and it will allow you to cook everything at the same time without having to overcook some and undercook some. So the idea for this dish was to basically capture the flavor of the tagine, which is a really long simmer, and it takes about 2 hours to make. So I take vegetable stock that I reinforce with other vegetables, carrots, onions, celery, and I reduce it down, and I add all the spices whole so that they don't cloud out the consommé too much. The flavor is all in the liquid. You put it in a bowl, and literally you can taste the tagine. But the idea of having it in the summertime, which is really cool, where the consommé is chilled, and it's thickened a little bit with gelatin, and you can have baby vegetables on top of it. And you literally, like when I first had it, I had this idea in my head, like it tastes like a tagine, but it doesn't feel like a tagine, it doesn't look like a tagine. Whether it has the soul of a tagine, I don't know. But for me, it's just something that it works, and it gives you a different twist and a different angle on something that is really traditional. The pour? Thank you. So, to start the plate, I'm just going to take the same vegetables that went into the consommé. Just going to lay them at the bottom of a bowl. And you just pour the consommé right over that.
Are those micro carrots?
Pardon me?
Those micro carrots?
Baby carrots, yeah.
Did you do anything to them before you put them in, or are they just completely raw?
No, they're just completely raw.
And the consommé is made from what?
Just vegetable stocks, reinforced with other vegetables, root vegetables, and I finish it with ras hanout. Here you go. So that's about it. That's my interpretation of what I think is Moroccan food. I think it's really important for me to basically know where it's coming from, try to capture that, reinterpret that my own way, and present to people in a very honest way. And I think that's the only way for me to cook and to, you know, present soul on a plate to people that come and eat my food.
Do you have any
Thank you.
questions? Any questions? Any questions for Mourad? I have a question while people are thinking about asking a question. So, spending a lot of time out in San Francisco, you know, dining and tasting and interviewing chefs over the years, I've seen, you know, some chefs that have come out to San Francisco, they've had a really hard time kind of being themselves as chefs. There's this whole kind of like shopping thing that they talk about with San Francisco and what's expected of a chef and what diners expect. Obviously, there are a lot of chefs who have been successful moving beyond that, but if you could talk a little bit about the market and what it's like to be a chef there,
I
I think
think
that would be interesting.
I think we have to understand the difference between regions. We have certain ingredients that I think we're so spoiled to have on the West Coast, and I think that's really important. We have to take that into account. We need to use this ingredient with respect and to understand them. We need to have a connection with people who give them to us. As I mentioned earlier, David Kinch, he's making his own fleur de sel from seawater outside of, you know, where he lives. I think that's unbelievable. And I think, like Dan Barber said, chefs are becoming more than just cooks. They become educators. They become people who can convey this notion of sustainability, this notion of, you know, you don't just have to eat because you're hungry. You know, food can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. You eat when you're hungry, you eat when you remember something from the past, you eat when you want to be inspired. So food can mean a lot of things. And I think on the East Coast, it's kind of different. And I've experienced this every time I came to New York to cook with the ingredients. There's always this debate between whether San Francisco has the ingredients and has complacent chefs, and New York has lesser ingredients and they have better technique. I think it's a little bit of both. You know, I think San Francisco has some extremely unbelievable chefs, and I think New York has some really good produce as well. And I think people just have to understand that, and you know, the relationship that you have, it's not just about eating an egg. I mean, I wish I had the conventional egg that I can show you. When you crack it open and you look at the yolk, a really good egg has an orange yolk that stands up. It's like a golf ball. It's delicious, it tastes like an egg yolk, but a conventional egg, you know, it's pale, it's yellow, it doesn't have any flavor. So you have to make that decision. You have to understand that what you're eating is it's not just to sustain you right then and there until the next day, but you got to think about the future as well.
Chef, your presentations are beautiful, and you're taking Moroccan cuisine and you're interpreting it. Give me a little bit more of a background on how you made the braised ribs.
The braised ribs?
Yeah.
Well, basically I sous vide them. I just marinated them, brined them in ras hanout, sous vide them for about 48 hours.
Do you make your own ras hanout?
Yeah, we do make our own ras hanout.
What do you put in there?
Oh man.
Start.
It's all sorts of things. I mean, you got cumin, you got coriander, you got caraway, you got nutmeg, mace. I mean, you can just name it. And it's just like we've been tweaking with the proportions like for the longest time. But I have a book coming out next year and it will have the recipe. So you can get that. So we sous vide them for about 48 hours, take them out, dice them and render them and just fold them into the Sharmulla sauce.
Well, that's the soul. That's the soul of that dish. I mean,
Yeah.
the beautiful potato foam and the egg are fantastic, but the inner core, the base of it is from that start. That's
But
why.
it's also, I mean, you can't really compromise the flavor and the taste by just trying to make it look pretty. You know, I think that's when I slip, is when I try to do that too much. When I try to, you know, I'm so wrapped up into making it look really appealing and different. But if you start to lose, you know, any sense of the flavor and you know, the soul of the food, that's when you run into trouble.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Anybody have a question for Chef? No?
Okay.
Well, I'm going to everybody please put your hands together for Mourad Lahlou.
Thank you.